Hi, I'm Lydia.
And I'm Robin.
And this is BBC News School Report from St Aidan's. The space probe Messenger went into orbit around the planet Mercury. Over to Will to explain more.
The successful launch of NASA's Messenger probe marked the start of the first mission to orbit Mercury. Mercury was last visited by Mariner 10 that had 3 flybys in 1974. Messenger is hopefully going to tell us if Mercury has a core that occupies 60% of its entire mass. I interviewed Dr. Lister from Russell School Observatory. Please tell us what the Messenger spacecraft is.
Yeah, it's a space probe sent up into space. We've been using these kind of spaceships now to explore our solar system for many, many years, over 30 years. The first planets we explored were things like Venus. We then went on to have a little look at Mercury, but that's quite a while ago now. Then we've looked at Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune in quite a lot of detail, and Mars in the last, say, 15 years. And we've explored them a lot and found out a lot of great pieces of information. And now, in a sense, what we're doing is going back to Mercury, because we originally explored Mercury in the 1970s. So it's time we went back, because what we found out about other planets has made us more interested again in things like Mercury and Venus.
What are we hoping to learn from this mission?
That's a very, very good question. Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun. It's very, very hot, and primarily what we're trying to do is to try and find out what kind of rock types are on the surface of Mercury, and whether Mercury or not has a core, and a biggish one, or a little core. And the reason we're trying to find these sort of things out is because we want to try and work out as much as possible what our very, very early solar system was like, what it was made of, how it formed, because we thought we had ideas of how our solar system formed really tied down. We thought we really knew. And only in the last few years have we started to think, oh, hang on a minute, I think we might have got a few things wrong here. And Mercury might be the kind of planet which might hold the key to some of these answers.
How do you think that the information gathered will actually benefit our planet?
That's a really good question, and people often ask these sort of things regarding space. All I can ever answer you there is, first of all, this is a scientific exploration. So it's the same thing as going up Mount Everest or going to the Antarctica continent, something like that, to try and find scientific information out, like going to the bottom of the deepest oceans. Now the problem is sometimes people will say, what about the money this costs? I will always say to people, we are human beings and we want to explore all the time, and nothing can stop us doing this. So if we don't do this century, we'll do it the next century. So let's do it now and let's increase our knowledge.
So do you think that NASA should be spending money on missions?
I personally think if NASA spend any of their money on missions, yes they should, because NASA are a company and they should be allowed to spend their money exactly how they want. And they do get money from their government, but nowhere near as much as they used to. And in the last, say, 15, 20 years, a lot of the money that NASA get, they sort of earn because they've been using the space shuttle to put satellites up in space, and they get paid money for that. So they're like a business. So really, whatever NASA want to spend their money on, that's up to them.
Do you think this mission will be a historical event?
It will for scientists if it all goes well. And the only problem is there's always a risk when we send spaceships to planets, because they've got to get there, they've got to get safely into orbit, and they've got to safely go through their mission, whether that involves landing on a planet or photographing the planet from orbit, etc. So I think personally it will be a success, and the reason is because even though Mercury is close to the Sun, surprisingly the mission doesn't involve as many risks as other missions have done, like when we've sent space probes to the planets that are very far away, like Jupiter and Saturn, for example.
What is your favourite planet and why?
I think at the moment Mars is probably the favourite planet, and the reason is because, again, over the last, say, 10 years or so, people's ideas have really changed about Mars, and what we now think is that Mars could once have had life on it, things like bacteria, things like that, and maybe it still has today. There could still possibly be life on Mars, so that's a great reason for it being a favourite planet.
Over the next few weeks, ALP engineers will be focused on ensuring the spacecraft systems are all working well in Mercury's harsh thermal environment. On March 23rd, the instruments were turned on and checked out, and on April the 4th, the mission's primary science phase will begin.
One place you'd find a lot of dog walkers is in your local park. You'd also expect to find a reasonable playground too. Nick has a story and some interviews on our peculiar park and the new development here in Preesall.
When an old playground was ripped down in Greater Manchester, some kids hoped it would be replaced with some new equipment, but all they got was a brick wall. Because of government cuts, the local council didn't have the funds to build what they had in mind and could only build a brick wall. They aren't happy. Here are some student views on how they feel about this. Sinead, how would you feel if your local park was pulled down?
I'd be really, really upset because it's where I spend most of my week, to be honest.
What about if they then only built a wall to play with?
That wouldn't be fair on the children.
Can you think of any things you could do with the wall?
Kick a ball against it, really.
Now, here's what the children of Greater Manchester found they could do with their brick wall. This could be a worry for local kids in Preesall, as there is a park in the consultant stage for being updated. What stage is the upgrading of the Preesall Park at the moment?
Well, at the moment they're still getting the permission and everything of local council for the building, and they applied for a lottery fund for a bit of it, but they didn't get that bit.
Do you feel this project is likely to succeed?
I hope so. I don't know if it's likely to succeed at the moment. They're still in the first stages of planning, and I hope it succeeds anyway.
How often do you text, and do you realise how many abbreviations we make every day? Will does, bulletin.
The mobile phone is becoming more and more popular for younger aged people, and people becoming more and more rushed in their lives with gaming and schoolwork. It can be only texting that's getting more and more rushed because of the popularity of text language and abbreviations. The Oxford Dictionary has added its first graphics in its 127-year history. The heart symbol is being given an entirely new usage as the verb meaning to love. The most famous use of the symbol came in 1977 when New York's mayor revealed a new t-shirt with the slogan, "I Heart New York." The symbol also came with 45,437 new words and meaning, including abbreviations like OMG for oh my god.
As a language teacher, what is your opinion of the Oxford Dictionary including abbreviations like OMG and WAG and the graphical symbol heart?
As a language teacher, I don't think there's any need for it in the Oxford Dictionary. I think children use it, and I have to admit that I use it when I'm texting my friends and family. But I think children know what it means, I think adults know what it means, I think it's a common thing, and I don't think it needs to go into the Oxford Dictionary.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm split slightly on this. I think it's a sad state of affairs that we are now communicating through abbreviations like OMG and WAG for wags and girlfriends. However, part of me thinks it's important that the Oxford English Dictionary does keep up with the way that language is evolving and changing. However, I would prefer perhaps to have a traditional Oxford English Dictionary and perhaps an alternative one with those sorts of abbreviations in.
Back to the studio.
And now for some entertainment news. Rebecca, Grace, Emma and Hannah have a report about the new Friday song by Rebecca Clark Black. So over to our very own Rebecca for the latest.
We all know everyone has different music tastes, and there are huge varieties in styles of music and tones of voices. But lately, things in the music industry seem to be going a little crazy, as Rebecca Black, a 13-year-old who recorded a song, made a music video, and posted it both on YouTube and iTunes, hit the charts this week, with some say the most annoying song ever written.
It's ever become an internet sensation over the past couple of weeks with her first song, Friday.
Everyone has different opinions of the song, and the comments on her YouTube account seem to vary, from the catchiest song ever to the most awful song ever recorded. The 13-year-old from America, however, was given a thumbs up by Simon Cowell, saying he loves Miss Black's YouTube hit.
Rebecca, who recorded the music video at her father's house with friends and family, certainly didn't seem to expect Friday to become such a massive hit, but she has voiced her hopes that it will start her music career.
When listening to the song, it becomes apparent that a lot of auto-tuning has been used, but it doesn't seem to stop the catchiness of the song.
So does Rebecca Black deserve her glory, or is her sudden fame just an auto-tuned accident?
We're going to do a St Aidan's jukebox jury to see what people's views are on the song Friday. What do you think of Rebecca Black's new song Friday?
It's awful, so I'm going to give it thumbs down.
I think it's really good, so I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
What do you think of the Friday song?
I don't really like it. I think it's kind of awful.
Friday, gotta get down on Friday.
It seemed the Friday song has received varied opinions from pupils at St Aidan's. This has been Hannah, Becca and Emma reporting for BBC School News Report.
For our final story, as you know, it was Comic Relief, or Red Nose Day, last Friday, and whilst more than 74 million was raised nationally and a lot of fun was had, here at St Aidan's we had our own share of the fun. Here's Marie with the story.
From the usual red noses you'd expect to a grand raffle which will be drawn tomorrow at the school. For Comic Relief 2011, the UK has raised over £74 million, and so far our school total is set to be over 1,000. Our involvement in Comic Relief began weeks before the big day when we had a top of the form quiz, which is a series of rounds where the best form got through to the final, where they then went head to head with the teachers. But unfortunately K3 were defeated by the teachers, but only by a few points. One of the highlights of the day was seeing the form tutors come to school in fancy dress, and it was hilarious. They all looked fantastic, and we had just about everything, from an Irish leprechaun to Vicky Pollard. We also had a non-uniform day, where all students had to bring just £1 for Comic Relief and wear something red. But not to be outdone by the teachers, one of our Year 9 students dressed up as Ezio from Assassin's Creed. We're still currently selling raffle tickets to win a signed Blackpool t-shirt, and the winner will be drawn tomorrow. But our money is still mounting up in our last attempts to raise even more money. Well done, St Aidan's.
Thank you for watching.
This is Lydia and Rob signing off.
For BBC News School Report from St Aidan's.